Holyrood. Let's take you away from Holyrood. It's been reported that sounds similar to gunfire have been heard close to the Palace of Westminster. A man with a knife had been seen within the confines of the palace, according to eyewitnesses. A lot of eyewitnesses reports on Twitter saying that armed police have been seen running to the exit from the UK Parliament. Sounds like an explosion. Other people saying sounds like gunfire.
And again, you get a sense there of the panic, people running across the street, a very, very wide, busy street, but nonetheless people just running when they heard those shots. Confusion, people, of course, not understanding what was happening. It is an extremely busy and crowded part of the capital.
Well, we're on Millbank at the moment. You can see that we're being pushed back by police at the moment. We came down here about 4 or 5 minutes ago, and there was a wave of people running down the street, including workmen and others who work around Parliament, who just say they didn't know what was going on, but they heard a noise and they were told just to get out as quickly as possible.
That counter-terrorism specialist firearms officers have now arrived on scene. Now, these CTSFOs, as they're called, are the elite of the SCO-19 firearms unit. They are specifically trained to deal in countering terrorism incidents.
Drive into some of the party of French school children. He also described some stabbing, 2 people he thought he'd seen. I can't corroborate any of these details. I merely pass on what he said to me. And also the sound of shots as the police dealt with the attackers.
In nature of 2 very different crime scenes. One you described, a public bridge used by French students, and then, of course, this incident within the confines of the Palace of Westminster, one of the most closely guarded buildings in this country.
Well, Rita, I'm actually inside the parliamentary lockdown. I've been here with several hundred people. And at about 10 to 3, I heard shouting at the front of Portcullis House, a few policemen appearing to be bundling members of the public, and then some other people, including myself, to move back away from the security door. I then saw dozens of members of the public rushing along the riverside. So there have been, since then, several hundred people in various different parts of the parliamentary estate, which is the warren of old buildings and new buildings.
Of his body armour there, the counter-terrorism specialist firearms officers. Those are the officers, the elite of the SCO-19 armed unit at the Metropolitan Police. They are specially trained to deal with terrorist-related incidents. Now, they have been, some of those officers have been inside the Houses of Parliament. Indeed, they're still inside K, carrying out a systematic search, room by room, of that building to make sure that there is no one still inside there that they believe may have been involved in the incident of what has already been described as a major incident by London Ambulance Service, with 1 woman dead, a number of other people, we're told, with catastrophic injuries.
OK, for now, thanks so much indeed, Mark. We're just going to look at some images, I think, with Jane and also with Colin, as there's more police activity here at the scene, about 100 metres or so away from where one of those terrorist incidents happened. What are you showing to us, Colin and Jane?
Kay, we're trying to pick out as judiciously as possible what's appropriate to use. As you could imagine, many of our viewers could imagine too, the internet in particular awash with images. This is not just the political and media hub of London, but just a place where hundreds of holidaymakers, many of them, of course, equipped with mobile phones with cameras, would be right now. So there are a great number of pictures in circulation right now. We're trying to sift through those pictures in such a way that we can show you what was clearly a dynamic and dramatic unfolding situation on Westminster Bridge, whilst respecting the usual proprieties as well. So we're trying to strike a balance, and I hope you'll appreciate that we've sought to do that. If you are of a disposition that might find them objectionable, this might be the appropriate moment to look away for a couple of minutes as we take you through these. This, a particularly disturbing image showing somebody who may have leapt over the wall or been hit over the wall. That's the Thames. The river itself, just to the top of that picture. This is if you know the area, this is that part of Westminster Bridge that effectively is adjacent to the Palace of Westminster itself, almost built into the foundations of the Palace of Westminster.
It was a black car, did you say?
It was a black car, yeah.
And from your sense at the time, this was all deliberate? It wasn't out of control? It wasn't accidental?
It was all deliberate. Because taking so many people off together, it can't be an accident for sure. And that too coming in such high speed, so definitely can't be an accident.
You can see there's a man on the ground, just looking at those images, a man on the ground being surrounded by police officers. As far as the geography of that shot is concerned, not really sure, but the cobbles might suggest that it is in Old Palace Yard as we hear more sirens. That's an ambulance heading just out of the direction. His legs are bare, as you can see from that image, and we are anticipating at this stage that I'm afraid to have to tell you that according to Sky sources within the last few moments, as we continue to look at that image of who is potentially a man that tried to stab a police officer inside the Palace of Westminster, or within the confines of the Palace of Westminster, that 2 people are now reportedly dead as a result of this terror incident.
We remain open-minded to the motive, a full counter-terrorism in the area of Parliament Square, and the Senior National Coordinator has declared this a terrorist incident. And although we remain open-minded to the motive, a full counter-terrorism investigation is already underway. This is led by the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command. At this stage, I will confirm what we know has happened, but I will not speculate. We received a number of different reports, which included a person in the river, a car in collision with pedestrians, and a man armed with a knife. Officers were already in that location as part of routine policing. But immediately additional officers were sent to the scene, and that included firearms officers. We are working closely with the London Ambulance Service and the London Fire Brigade.
Good evening, my name's Mark Rowley. I'm the National Head of Counter-Terrorism Policing, and I'm also Acting Deputy Commissioner. I want to make a statement about this afternoon's events, and I'm going to try and cover 3 main areas. What we know about the incident, the ongoing operation, and what London can expect over the coming days. As you know, we've declared this as a terrorist incident, and the Counter-Terrorism Command are carrying out a full-scale investigation into the events today. The attack started when a car was driven over Westminster Bridge, hitting and injuring a number of members of the public, also including 3 police officers on their way back from a commendation ceremony. The car then crashed near to Parliament, and at least 1 man, armed with the knife, continued the attack and tried to enter Parliament. Sadly, I can confirm that now 4 people have died. That includes the police officer who was protecting Parliament, and 1 man we believe to be the attacker who was shot by a police firearms officer. The officer's family have been made aware. At least 20 people have been injured. As part of long established and well-rehearsed plans, Parliament has been locked down, and the Met responded in line with our plans for a marauding terrorist attack. That response included uniformed and specialist firearms officers. We now, of course, have an ongoing operation, and whilst we currently believe there was only 1 attacker, I am sure the public will understand us taking every precaution in locking down and searching the area as thoroughly and exhaustively as possible. And I know that the officials working within Parliament and public in the area completely understand the need to do this, and I thank them for their patience and their support.
The officer that was attacked, was he one of the armed officers that protect Parliament?
One of the armed officers protecting Parliament, yes.
As well as the police officer and the suspected assailant who have died, the other 2 people who died, did they die on Westminster Bridge or did they die in the Parliament area?
That's my understanding at the moment. As you understand with these incidents, casualty numbers and details can be a bit confused, but I believe they died on the bridge. One more question, gentleman behind.
Was the attacker known?
So clearly our investigation is now going forward, and I'm not going to give you any details on that for obvious reasons.
Injured in this terror attack and confirming that 4 people have sadly lost their lives. Those include a police officer who has not yet been named, and also the attacker as well, is what we're being told. According to Sky sources, a woman was also one of those injured.
Spicer.
The President has been briefed on the situation in London. He just spoke to Prime Minister May, and we'll have a readout on that situation and that call soon. We obviously condemn today's attack in Westminster, which the United Kingdom is treating as an act of terrorism. And we applaud the quick response that the British police and their first responders made to the situation. The victims in this are in our thoughts and our prayers. The City of London and Her Majesty's government have the full support of the U.S. government in responding to the attack and bringing those to justice who are responsible. We will provide you with further updates as warranted, and as I mentioned, a readout of the President's call with the Prime Minister.
We did just see within the last few minutes, Colin, an ambulance that came past here with police, a police escort at the front and at the back. And there is speculation among some of us here at the press as it was going past whether that potentially was the attacker or perhaps someone involved in it, because those police were clearly guarding the ambulance as it left the scene.
The injured strewn on Westminster Bridge. Victims surrounded by emergency responders and passers-by. Each group charting the route taken by the 4x4 as it careered onto the pavement towards Parliament. And this is where the car ended its bloody mission, smashed into the railings outside Parliament. The attacker on foot then forced his way into New Palace Yard, where he stabbed a police officer. The next few moments were caught on a mobile phone from across the road. Confusion. And 3 gunshots.
You can see that we're being pushed back by police at the moment. We came down here about 4 or 5 minutes ago, and there was a wave of people running down the street, including workmen and others who work around Parliament, who just said they didn't know what was going on, but they heard a noise and they were told just to get out as quickly as possible.
Here, the aftermath. And the suspect taken away on a stretcher, stripped, his wounds covered. The red circles mark 2 knives lying on the cobbles. On a busy day in Parliament, the Prime Minister and hundreds of MPs and staff were inside the palace. Counter-terrorism specialist firearm officers, the elite response team, raced inside. The Prime Minister extracted and removed at speed. In her wake, thousands of confused tourists, workers and commuters caught up in a few frantic moments at one of the world's most famous landmarks.
I was just walking across the bridge when suddenly a bus stopped right in front of me and everybody started screaming. And I saw a trainer in the road, and first of all...
A trainer as in a shoe?
A shoe, yeah. And I thought somebody must have been hit by a car. And then I saw a body on the other side of the road, and then there was another body further up. And then when I looked over the side of the bridge, there was another body lying in the water.
Parliament Square became a helipad, bringing armed officers in as ground ambulances took the injured to nearby St Thomas's Hospital. Inside Parliament, 2 hours after Prime Minister's questions, a clerk ran into the chamber with the news.
I am now going to suspend the sitting of the House. This House is now suspended, but please wait here.
While the Labour MP Mary Cray was in a crush of politicians and staff who were caught up in Parliament's perimeter when they heard the shots behind them.
We had no choice but to leave the building and we have rotary doors, one in, one out at a time, so people were getting stuck in the doors. There was a real sense of panic at that point as we all tried to get out of the doors. And I shouted to the security guard to open the doors so we could all just leave as quickly as possible. He was a bit reluctant to do that because I think they'd already been told that they were on lockdown and to keep things shut. But obviously we wanted to get out of that situation where there was shooting behind us as quickly as possible.
Across the river, the London Eye stopped turning. Tourists trapped in the glass pods as the discordant chorus of sirens continued on the ground. New Scotland Yard is a few hundred metres from the scene. Officers brought the grim updates.
My thoughts are with all those who have been affected by today's attack. And as a service, we've lost one of our own as he acted to protect the public and his colleagues. This is a day we planned for, but we hope would never happen. Sadly, it's now a reality. We will continue to do all we can to protect the people of London.
Just this weekend, there was a counter-terrorism exercise on the Thames. With outrages in France, Germany and exactly a year ago in Belgium, authorities here were preparing for a similar attempt. Today, it happened. Robert Nisbet, Sky News, Westminster.